Hello, BookTube. I have more books I want to talk to you about. And at first, when I thought that, I realized, well, okay, but what pretext do you have? I mean, it's not Friday Reads. It's not Brattle Hall. And I thought, I don't need a pretext to turn on the camera and talk to you about books. I can do that anytime I want, right? That's what you're here for. So let's just call this Wednesday Reads, shall we? I want to talk to you about a few books that I've been reading recently, so sue me. The first one I want to start off with is this wonderful thing. How do you take a bath? This is a kids' illustrated book that is obviously for parents to work the idea of peacefully taking a bath into the child's consciousness. This is for that age, when this is designed to make baths seem like fun. And I was especially receptive to it because I just recently gave my little schnauzer her very first bath after a year of life. I decided it's long since time that I gave you a bath. And I determined not to fall into the same pattern that I have with other dogs. Most of the dogs I've had absolutely hate the idea of taking a bath. And because I'm a softie, and because I grew up with them, and because I was raised by them, because they mean more to me than anything else, usually, unless it's a matter of health, I tend not to make them do what they hate. And as a result, I've had stinky dogs. That's not going to be true with Frida. I'm going to bathe her every month. That's not the end of the world. She can live with that. She bounced back right away from her first bath. She didn't like it while it was going on, but it was easy to do. It was 15 minutes out of her day. But anyway, that's why I gravitated to this, but it is so wonderful. And the artwork, who does the artwork? I should probably credit them, since the illustration is by Sidney Hanson, and the text, which rhymes, is by Kate McMullen. And the whole question is, how do you take a bath? And they rhyme. So, cat has a rough pink tongue to lick his smooth brown fur. Polar bear scrubs his face with snow. Brrr. Look at how wonderful the illustrations are. Let me give you just one more here. Elephant lifts his trunk and gives himself a shower. Pig wallows in the mud hour after hour. And there's the elephant with Mama watching carefully, and there's the pig with all of her piglets wallowing in the mud. I just loved it. I thought it was incredible. Those of you who are in the market for kids' books and you have a kid who's at that stage where you're trying to make a convincing case for taking a bath, you can't do better than this. The only thing more appetizing would be this plus one of those plushy bath books that you can dunk underwater. What I wouldn't give. I remember back in periods in my past when I've had a deep bathtub. If those of you who have it, don't take the luxury for granted. I don't have one now. There'd be no point in me taking a bath in the tub that I have now. But in the past, I have had deep bathtubs. And oh my God, they are such an enormous pleasure. And when I have had them, of course you read in the tub. And I don't know how many times I have wished that I had one of those plushy, rubbered, you can dunk it underwater book versions of Pride and Prejudice. I've lost so many books in the bathtub. You have a tray, right, that goes over the top of the tub. You have your stuff, you have your shampoo and whatnot, and that's where you put your book. And then a beagle comes up and noses it over, and into the tub it goes. But anyway, if you have a kid who's in that situation, this was wonderful. It was delightful anyway for me, and I don't, because Frida can't read. And then this next one's a big work of history. It's on a much plowed subject, a subject that has been covered many, many times. So I wasn't expecting to really like it, and I loved it. I loved it. It's by Joseph Kelly, and it's called Marooned: Jamestown, Shipwreck, and a New History of America's Origins. Big, thick thing. And all about the Jamestown colony, but read complete. I mean, it's not like there's any raft. Oh! She's gonna keep doing this in videos. She's gonna keep appearing in videos. Hey, everybody, there's Frida. They all love you, baby. They love you more than they love me. There's not really a new raft of Jamestown material. Instead, the author just goes at that material in a wonderfully invigorating way. It'll make you think. Even if you know Jamestown really well, the story really well, I thought I did, it will make you think. It's a tremendously good example of revisionist history. One of a few really good revisionist histories I've read in 2018. And then this next one, gorgeous, heavy, finished copy of one of the best biographies of the year. No doubt about it. I read the advanced copy, but and I was tremendously impressed. I wanted to wait and really study the finished copy, and I did. This is by David Blight, and this is Frederick Douglass, Prophet of Freedom. Gorgeous thing from, who does this? Simon & Schuster. Big, gorgeous thing. Really heavy, sewn binding, the deckled edges. A terrific life of Frederick Douglass. The best life I've read of Frederick Douglass that wasn't written by Frederick Douglass. Just tremendously good. Very much along the lines of what usually a year's biography is like. Usually the biographies in a year are of gigantic, towering figures like Frederick Douglass. 2018 hasn't been that way. I've had installation artists, random Russian art collectors, dancers, golfers, karate movie action stars, and they've all been fantastic. This is one of the first Foursquare traditional biographies of big towering figures that I've read this year that was just knock out of the park fantastic. This is just incredible. Those of you who maybe you want to get on a list for it at your library, it's expensive. I'm pretty sure it's expensive. Yeah, it's almost $40. It's worth it. I mean, that's a huge amount of money to spend. In a way, there's a way to say that no book is worth that. But it's the world we live in. If you have a list for this at your library and you're interested, by all means get on that list. If you're going to splurge for the holidays, $40 will buy you a book you will reread for your whole life. The only caveat to that, and it's not a caveat about this book because this book is amazing. The only caveat that I would add is that is a familiar one. Those of you who are used to being lectured on this channel will see it coming, which is that if you're interested enough to read a 600-page biography of Frederick Douglass, then you should reread his book. Okay? You should reread his book. His book is brilliant. Read about him, absolutely, but also read him. Just in case you haven't. You should. This next one is an illustrated version of Little Women. This is for the, I think, the 150th anniversary illustrated edition. This is with an introduction, a foreword by J. Courtney Sullivan, who's a terrific writer, just a terrific novelist. And this comes, those of you who've been death marching through all of my videos will know that there was recently a book about the creation of Little Women that I always get the title wrong. It's The Four Girls. It's the name of the four girls in Little Women, separated by commas. It's not anything else. It's just their names. I always get the names wrong in order. I get the sequence wrong. So I don't want to do that. But that book is terrific. Just terrific. Just an amazingly lively account. And in the minute I finished reading it, I wanted to read Little Women again. That's the effect I think it will have on everybody who reads it, either to read it for the first time or read it again. And I know, as soon as I finished it, I knew what... I have a copy of Penguin Classic of Little Women, of course, but I know that I want... There was a big, ornate, gorgeous, annotated, white dust jacket version of Little Women that came out a few years ago. I think it was from Norton, and I don't think Norton ever sent me a copy, and I want that copy. I want that copy of Little Women. And I guess it's just, since I read that Little Women book, the book about Little Women, I've just been telling myself, wait until you find that copy to reread it. But I got this, and it's lovely. It's illustrated. It's got all these wonderful spot illustrations, and it will do just fine. I'm not going to hold off enjoying this thing again just until I happen to find that old Norton annotated edition. So I reread this. I loved the preface. And I love the spot illustrations are very dainty. They're very graceful all throughout. And I love the book. I really did. I had a feeling after having read that book by Anne Boyd Ryu, I had a feeling that I was going to love Little Women more than I did the last time I read it, and I did by leaps and bounds. But also, I think I would have appreciated it more anyway. This is one of those books that you read as a staple part of reading when you're younger, and it grows on you as time goes on. Because there's more of it involved. There's more stuff going on than you originally perceive. I loved the reread. I absolutely did, and I am ready to read it again if that Norton volume ever crosses my path. So, but I got this. I don't know that I'll hold on to this edition, but I figure if the gods are going to nudge you, you are ill-advised to ignore them. And if I finish a book about Little Women and I say I really want to reread Little Women and I get an illustrated new edition of Little Women and I ignore it, I'm going to be in trouble with the book gods. So I didn't want that to happen, so I didn't. Then this next one, Also, reprint. I confess I've only read one volume out of the two. Because I'm not sure that I'm up for both volumes. But this is Library of America, and this is absolutely lovely. This is Madeleine L'Engle. Again, we just recently saw reprints, paperback reprints of her nonfiction works, some of her spiritual works, her book on writing, and this is all of her novels. This is Swiftly Tilting Planet and all of its sequels, which a lot of people don't realize that it had so many sequels. They are familiar with 4 books, but not 8. And this is just. This is all of them. It's a lovely Library of America, slipcase it's just wonderful thing, wonderful production. And I read the first one, the Wrinkle of Time Quartet. I have not got to the Polly O'Keefe Quartet. I will, I suppose, but I had a wonderful time just sitting down and rereading the Wrinkle in Time books. That was just a wonderful time doing that. So I was very happy to get this. I have a shelf of Library of America volumes, especially these box sets that are just so lovely. Although they also have, Library of America also has a new volume, I think it might be a paperback original, that is a very well curated volume on the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers, the debate over the United States Constitution. It's the best one volume abridgment and selection and curation of those documents that I've ever seen. I strongly recommend it. I'll try and remember to leave a link to it down below for the Library of America's website so you know what I'm talking about, because I don't have it here in front of me. I don't think. Do I have it here in this room somewhere? Oh, look at that, I do. I do. It's The Essential Debate on the Constitution. It's edited by Robert Allison and the great Bernard Bailyn. And it's just that. It's the debate on the Constitution, for and pro, all the essential documents. Just a wonderful volume to get. I don't know when does this exactly come out. Is this now that I've got it in front of me, I might as well tell you about it. Yeah, it's a paperback original. It comes out in early October. Those of you who are interested, these are foundational documents of American history. People think the Constitution, Declaration of Independence are foundational documents. Fine, but America was born arguing. And this is a perfect illustration of that. And it's also some very eloquent prose. And then the last book I want to show you today. I read a chunk of the advance copy. And then I got the finished copy and I just sat down and read it deeply, slowly, deep attention to it. It's this. It's Killing Commendatore by Haruki Murakami. This is the lovely finished copy, which has an eyeball, and the eyeball is the moon. And a hole in the cover there. That is the finished copy of the book. Let me read you. Actually, no, I don't know. I shouldn't assume that any of you know what this is. So let me read you. In Killing Commendatore, a 30-something portrait painter in Tokyo is abandoned by his wife and finds himself holed up in the mountain home of a famous artist, Tomohiko Amada. When he discovers a previously unseen painting in the attic, he unintentionally opens a circle of mysterious circumstances. To close it, he must complete a journey that involves a mysterious ringing bell, a 2-foot-high physical manifestation of an idea, a dapper businessman who lives across the valley, a precocious 13-year-old girl, a Nazi assassination attempt during World War II in Vienna, a pit in the woods behind the artist's home, and an underworld haunted by double metaphors. A tour de force of love and loneliness, war and art, as well as a loving homage to The Great Gatsby. Killing Commendatore is a stunning work of imagination from one of our greatest writers. And I have had an on-again, off-again relationship with this author for his entire career. Books that he phones in from a great distance. Let's put it that way. And then the books that he doesn't phone in, the books that he seems to be grappling with, first of all, they tend to be more ambitious and they tend to be longer. And they are unmissable. They are unignorable. I thought that with his last, with the enormous book that came before this one. This one is also fairly big. This is brilliant. This is a brilliant novel. The plot description in that flyleaf leads you to think that it is the usual Murakami stuffed bag, just completely full of things. And some of you might have had the same experience reading this author that I have, where when you get a book like that, you end up disappointed because he hasn't mastered the knack of treating all of those things well. It's profusion for profusion's sake. I have seen books like that by this author. This is not one of those. This is mainly the fault of that cover copy. The cover copy could have been more accurate. This is not as manic a book as that description makes it sound. The one note that is mentioned in that cover copy that sounds throughout this book brilliantly is the loneliness of creativity. The isolation that is necessary, self-imposed, in order to create, is, I think, one of the animating themes running throughout this book. I am going to have to read this again before the year is over, but I actually don't know what the very first critical reactions to this book are. I certainly don't know any of them. I know lots of book critics in America, and I don't think any of them have read this yet. So I've been sort of hesitant to look and see what the overseas reaction to this book is. It will be a little queasy if the overseas reaction is, it's just Murakami again. It's just more of the same, because this is not more of the same. I'm a little at odds. Obviously, I'm a little discomfited saying this because I am used to discounting this author. I have often held him up as an example of the iniquitous nature of this assumption of the late 20th and early 21st century, where if someone is an author, in quotes, if that's their profession on their business card, then we must expect good novels from them all the time, when I think the reality is that most people only have one or at most two good novels in them. And the way the book contracts are set up today in the world, they can be lucrative if you keep producing product, and so you're forced to keep producing product when the well is dry. And I have held Murakami up many times as an author that I often suspect that's true of. What can I say? I will happily eat crow. If he had somehow known that I existed 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when I was saying you should hang it up, you only had one good book in you, he wouldn't have written this, and I wouldn't have read it. So I'm glad that he never heard that, and I was wrong. If this is an author whose creativity takes seasonal ebbs and flows, fine. I will live with that. I will live with his next book, or his next two books, being boring and self-indulgent, if I can get books like this from this author. So I'm going to wrap this little weird Wednesday Reads installment up with this. It is a wholehearted recommendation. This is a terrific book. So reserve it at the library. You'll probably have a long line. You buy it as a present for someone who really likes big involving novels for Christmas, and then read it before you give it to them. Whatever, because this is going to be expensive too. This is $30. So, I mean, right there, the two books that I'm unconditionally recommending in this video alone are almost $100 together. That's highway robbery, I know, but one way or another, even if you don't ever get around to reading it, if you're curious to know, if you see this in bookstores, there are thousands of you now. If you see this in bookstores and you think, as some of you have paid me the huge compliment of telling me that you do, I wonder what Steve thinks of that. That is what Steve thinks of that, and Steve is as surprised as anybody. This is brilliant. This is one of the best novels that I have read this year. So we'll wrap this up. That is Killing Commendatore by Haruki Murakami. That's the first book in our Wednesday Reads here. Then we have a lovely illustrated edition, 150th anniversary edition of Little Women. Then we have David Blight's magnificent biography of Frederick Douglass. Just magnificent. Then Marooned by Joseph Kelly. Probably only for the history buff, but if you're a history buff, especially of American history, this is where American history starts, and you have never read a Jamestown account, anything like this. That's a recommendation all by itself. Then a lovely boxed edition of Madeleine L'Engle. Talk about a gift ready. If you have a Wrinkle in Time fan, this is a wonderful gift for the holidays to find this Library of America box set and give it to them. That's wonderful. Especially since the other books are much harder to find. So not only will you be able to give them everything in this, but in a lovely edition. Sewn binding, acid-free pages, built-in bookmark, a box of its own. As a gift, it recommends itself. And then lastly, how do you take a bath? Do you roll in mud? Do you wash yourself in snow? Do you lick yourself clean? So there you go. I don't need a reason, do I, to come on here and talk about books? No. So that is a Wednesday Reads. That's what we'll call it. But I will wrap this up for now. And I don't know. Maybe we've maxed out on book talk for today. I don't know one way or another. Sometimes your hunger seems as endless far as mine. But I will wrap this up. I don't know if we'll see each other again today. There'll always be tomorrow, if not. And anyway, until then, thank you, BookTube.